Hello, this is Congressional Update with Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts District 7. I'm Sarah Fishman. How you doing?
Hi, Sarah. I'm doing great.
You're doing great. You look great.
Good to be home. Good to be in the MA-7th. Good to be in Somerville, to be here with you today. And also wonderful to be here during Juneteenth week. So
I was going to ask you about that. What did you do yesterday?
I've been all over the district. I've been in Hyde Park, which is my home community. I've been in Roxbury. I've been in Chelsea. I've been in Randolph.
I saw on Instagram you were dancing.
Yes, doing a little bit of line dancing. You know, trying to work off some of that soul food. But you know, I'm just so grateful for the two women and the many advocates who led the fight for this to become a nationally observed federal holiday, to recognize the resilience of my enslaved ancestors, to celebrate our, their emancipation, and again to acknowledge the contributions of Black Americans and the accurate telling of our history at a time when people seek to ban Black hair, to ban our bodies, to ban Black books. I think it's an important celebration, recognition, and affirmation of Black resilience, of Black resistance, Black freedom, Black beauty, brilliance, and joy. So yeah, it's been an incredible week.
I'm sorry it was so hot for some of that.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah,
it was still a good time.
Oh yes. People were just.
They were pumped.
In many ways, it just feels like one big family reunion. You know,
well, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a nice.
Like, so hence the line dancing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do a little quick bio.
Okay.
If we can, number of terms you've been in office and your committee assignments.
Okay, all right. So first, I for the last 5 years have represented the Massachusetts 7th Congressional District. I'm currently pursuing a 4th term because we run for re-election every 2 years. My district is majority parts Boston, Cambridge, all of Somerville,
yes,
Randolph, Everett, Chelsea, and just a little bit of Milton. Since I was elected to Congress, I've been serving on the Financial Services Committee, which I love that work, financial institutions, banking, consumer protection, student debt, housing, homelessness, to name a few.
Does that mean that you're working more with Senator Warren because of her interest in
some
of that?
I do work closely with Senator Warren.
Yeah.
She's a dear friend. And yes, we, are two sides of the same coin, so to speak, given her leadership on these issues. And so, for example, on the issue of student debt cancellation,
yes,
she and I were shoulder to shoulder working with Leader Schumer to actualize the progress that's been realized, which we'll pick up, on in a little bit. I also serve on the Committee on Oversight and Reform. Right. I love the work of oversight. I love committee work, just period.
Not everyone says that.
I love committee work.
Why do you like it?
I love working on a question line. Okay. I love being investigative. It's an incredible responsibility. It's a humbling honor to be the Congresswoman. I love lawmaking. I love committee work. And I also just want to lift up that I know people often define our role just by the votes that we take on the House floor and our committee work, but I'm also a member of a number of affinity and ideological caucuses. I won't name them all, but I want to lift up some of the ones where I really do lead. So I chair the Abortion Rights and Access Task Force for the Pro-Choice Caucus. I'm also the co-chair of the House Bike Caucus.
The Bike Caucus?
Yes. Co-founder of the Future of Transportation Caucus. I've always been passionate about multimodal investments and advocacy. So that work started when I was on the Boston City Council.
I thought you once said something about riding a bike. Am I?
Well, nothing negative. I just, I've in my younger years as an athlete, I've endured a number of injuries, which can make it harder for me to cycle in a more competitive or athletic way. But I do still cycle just for enjoyment and time with my family. But I remain a very vigorous advocate on behalf of multimodal infrastructure investments and so public transit and cycling and walkability and all those things. So in addition to chairing the Abortion Rights and Access Task Force under the Pro-Choice Caucus, co-chair the Bike Caucus, co-founder the Future Transportation Caucus. I recently was appointed to the Bipartisan Task Force on Artificial Intelligence under the Financial Services
that's
Committee.
a big one.
Yes, it is. Huge implications on banking, on consumer protection, on the future of work.
On everything.
Yes. And then more recently, expanding, because the Massachusetts delegation, I'm biased, of course, I think is the best delegation in the country, and we also have so many members in our delegation serving in leadership roles. So I've expanded that leadership table. I was recently appointed as the Region 12 liaison. So
what's Region 12?
That means I represent all of the New England members of Congress at the leadership table, advocating for those issues that need to be championed, that are of regional relevance and impact, and also advocating for my colleagues to get the committee assignments that line up with their talents and the needs of the district. And then finally, I was recently appointed, and I'm a founding member of the Stop Project 2025 Task Force.
Okay.
And so we can talk more about that later.
Yes. Okay. Yes, that's a lot of stuff.
And it's not all of it.
I know. Is that more than normal for someone who's in her third term? I'm just wondering.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but I will just say that I love the committee work. I love lawmaking. I love consensus building.
Yes.
And I love building with my colleagues to find opportunities for collaboration and advancing our shared priorities as a Democratic caucus. And so the ideological and the affinity caucuses afford me that opportunity.
I like that term, affinity caucuses.
Yes, like the Congressional Black Caucus.
Yeah, no.
Or the Congressional Progressive Caucus.
I guess I just don't know the term.
Democratic Women's Caucus, yes. Ideological or affinity.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to something that happened somewhat recently, which is the mifepristone decision by the Supreme Court saying it's okay, it's still legal. I believe you said that it was sort of a procedural decision, but you were still surprised. So if you could sort of expand on that.
Well, I mean, I'm an Aquarius, so I'm an eternal optimist.
I am too.
You are?
Yeah, when's your birthday?
February 3rd.
I'm 9th.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll keep that in mind. I have an optimism bias, you know.
Okay.
However, when it comes to this far-right, imbalanced, extreme Supreme Court, which is often overturning the will of the majority of the people and ruling with an absence of justice, I was skeptical. So I am surprised. I'm also incredibly relieved. It is an important victory. It's in that mifepristone, or rather medication abortion, was not banned. It remains legal, safe, effective, even safer than Tylenol, in fact. And so for those who wish to manage a miscarriage or to seek abortion care, they will still be able to do that with mifepristone. So when it comes to the Supreme Court ruling, I'm surprised, I'm relieved, and it's an important victory for reproductive health care access. With the Supreme Court, they started with Dobbs, the overturning of Roe. Then dominoes continued to fall. They went after birth control and contraceptives. Then they went after IVF.
Yeah.
And so this was a procedural ruling. I am bracing myself for future challenges. I think that is highly plausible, highly probable, given this far-right.
Highly probable that there will be other
challenges, because the Supreme Court have been enlisted as co-conspirators and accomplices in in this far-right march towards a nationwide ban on abortion. And what is that? I mean, that is forced birth.
And you also say that dealing with it is addressing abortion justice. And I wanted to ask you, actually, are those common terms? Because I never heard them before. Or is that terminology unique that you came up with yourself?
Well, When I use the word justice, I'm using it from the lens of, so I'll give an example. Disability rights is different from disability justice. So usually when you're saying justice, you're talking about the intersection of issues. So I have a legislation called the Abortion Justice Act, which is a new North Star. It's the acknowledgement that as much as we need to ensure that we do codify Roe at the federal level, which is why I am a lead sponsor on the Women's Health Protection Act, which is twice passed the House. Judy Chu, I thank my sister in service there. She has introduced that bill and reintroduced it every Congress since 2013. She was an early canary in the coal mine who feared that a day like this would come and we needed to codify Roe at the federal level. So I'm now a lead sponsor on that bill with Congresswoman Judy Chu, and it's twice passed the House, been stopped at the Senate. We also need to abolish the filibuster, but that's a conversation, for another day. We need ethics reform. We need a code of ethics for the Supreme Court. I think we need to
So I'm sorry,
expand the bench.
what's the difference between justice and rights?
The justice is that it's at the intersection of everything. So it's about ensuring that access is for everyone. Okay. So because the thing about Roe is that Roe was really, it is really the floor and not the ceiling. Because even with Roe, there were still many people, low-income people, Black, brown, indigenous, disabled, who could not access, right? So because you have things like the Hyde Amendment that is racist and discriminatory and denies access to this care based on how you pay your insurance. So even with Roe, there were still many barriers to access. And access to abortion care is healthcare. Healthcare is a human right. It's also a matter of bodily autonomy and freedom. So this is an issue of deep consequence. So again, when it comes to the Supreme Court, I'm surprised, I'm relieved. It's an important victory for reproductive healthcare access. I'm bracing for future challenges, and that's why Congress must act. We have got to pass the Women's Health Protection Act and codify Roe at the federal level, and we have to pass my Abortion Justice Act because it gets to all the ways in which there have still been barriers to access.
Okay, so you've anticipated the next question, which is what is this going to do in terms of your efforts marching forward? So what do you think will happen next? What is the likelihood? Maybe it'll pass the House, maybe it won't. Do you have a sense of?
Well, I'm not a forecaster. What I would say to your viewers is that in this election, whether you have a ballot referendum question or not, abortion is on the ballot. And so that is a matter of healthcare access, bodily autonomy, and freedom. And it is the Democrats that are working to preserve and to expand access to this critical healthcare. And it's not only Democrats who care about this. We see this as a motivating issue to the polls in red states, in blue states, in purple states. Again, whether you're motivated based on it as a matter of bodily autonomy and freedom or as a matter of healthcare access, people recognize that it's a deeply consequential issue. When I consider a nation of forced birth and we have a Black maternal morbidity crisis, my grandmother died in the 1950s giving birth to my father's youngest brother. The fact that Black women today, regardless of socioeconomic status, are still 3 to 4 times more likely to die in childbirth or post-birthing complications. So when we say that this is a matter of life and death, it's not hyperbole. It is a matter of life and death. So it's really critical that the Democrats get the gavel back in the House so that we can pass the Women's Health Protection Act and my Abortion Justice Act.
So I'm going to just insert in here that you have a teenage daughter. So I'm just wondering, this is totally consistent with everything you've always said and fought for, but how does that inform this effort on your part?
Well, I'll one-up it because I'm also a leader in the work to finally enshrine gender equality in our Constitution with the Equal Rights Amendment. It's been 101 years too long that we have not enshrined gender equality in our Constitution. I do believe that the ratification threshold for that has been met, and so I continue to push that. I don't think that we would be in a situation where the Supreme Court could move with such callous disregard for the rights of women if we had gender equality enshrined. So when it comes to my daughter, these are the things I think about. I think, unfortunately, having our rights rolled back and undermined, pay gaps, all of these different things, I think unfortunately, they have been normalized and conflated as a part of, sexual harassment, gender-based violence, just as, inevitabilities in what it means to be girl and what it means to be woman. And I think that's unacceptable. So my daughter, Cora, is top of mind for me in all of my legislative advocacy, particularly when it comes to gender-specific and responsive policies and programming.
Is she into any of this with you, or is that mom's deal?
She's toying right now with, she just started visiting colleges, and she's toying with.
She's almost 16.
She's turning 16 at the end of the month, and she's gone back and forth between pre-law, pre-med, what path she wants to get on ultimately. But at a recent college tour, they asked her about political science, and she said absolutely not. So no, she's not going that route.
I don't want the family gig.
She's not going that route, but it doesn't mean she's not politically aware.
Right.
And I think that's very true for her generation.
Yes.
I do want to say I was at her 8th grade graduation when the Dobbs decision came out.
Because that was 2 years ago.
Yes, when Roe was overturned.
Right.
She's a sophomore now, and she'll be a rising junior, right? And I do remember, just going into the day with so much hope and optimism, and then learning in real time that the Dobbs decision had come out and Roe had been overturned.
So it was the same day?
It was the same day. I was
Wow.
actually at her graduation. And I just was filled with tremendous dread, thinking about, my daughter growing up with fewer rights than I grew up with. And then I quickly shook it off because I knew we needed to get to work, to do everything in our power to ensure that that this human right, this access to health care and abortion care is health care, that it was reinstated. And so that's what I've been doing in coalition. Anything on litigation, I'm on amicus briefs, anything on legislation, anything in agitation. I've also been arrested. We're going to do it all. I have to organize like lives depend on it, because they do.
Yeah. I think it says on your Instagram, activist, survivor, and Congresswoman is in there too, but those two are there. Yeah. Okay, let's switch to something also very complicated.
Okay.
In preparing for this, I really couldn't tell which way was up, because it seems like with asylum and immigration issues that this party says this and this party says that, and there's still this universal not figuring it out quite yet. So, but to be specific, the Biden administration recent announcement saying southern border is closed if there are X number of people who are crossing per day, and it's like 2,500, right? And at the time he announced it, the number of people was like 3,700 or something like that. It's effectively very narrowly restricting, people going in. So first off, that's one thing to ask you about. And then the second is this decision about this other announcement saying that undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens in the country for at least 10 years who are not a public safety threat are eligible, not necessarily going to get, eligible for staying in the country. Yeah. So what is your reaction to those two?
Okay.
And are they contradictory or part of the same ball of wax?
First of all, Sarah, good job on the explanation. You made that all very digestible, and it was like a mini TED Talk. So,
okay.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
So I'll work backwards here. On your question around the decision regarding spouses, I think that is a tremendous step in the right direction of keeping families together and getting people on a pathway to citizenship. And it's just important because I think often in these policy debates, we can just get bogged down in statistics and stories and forget that behind those statistics and stories are real people, real families that have been in limbo. So I'm very supportive of that. On the second, which I see as completely eroding asylum, which is a legal right to seek asylum. I'm disappointed. I certainly am not insensitive to or naive the frustrations because Congress has not acted, and Congress does need to act. But this is a fundamental human right, and moreover, when there is U.S. foreign policy that has been rooted in colonialism or a climate crisis that has contributed to the destabilization of countries and why people are fleeing. I think we have to acknowledge the role that U.S. foreign policy has played.
Do you have a personal sense of why that your opinion, why there's this larger influx of migrant individuals, or is it?
Yes, greater,
unrest,
civil and political unrest and
just
destabilization.
Yeah.
And again, to be clear, this is a humanitarian crisis,
Yeah.
and it has been 20-30 years in the making. I think Democrats and Republicans have failed on this, to be honest. So again, I'm not naive or insensitive to the president's frustrations that Congress has not acted, but I do not. This is a very blunt, inhumane tool to address what is a humanitarian crisis. So we have to get at the root causes.
Okay, so if you had a wand, swoosh, swoosh, what would you do first, or what would you consider key components of immigration reform?
Yeah. Well, I think, again, this proposal that was just rolled out, I think is a step in the right direction. The spousal support, again, because I care about family reunification or family stabilization and connectivity, again, families staying together. There's so many mixed immigration status families, TPS holders, asylum seekers, DACA recipients. I mean, so we have to have policies that are reflective of
it's just so confusing.
Of people's real lives.
Yeah.
And if I look at something like Haiti, if people are frustrated, by the influx of asylum seekers, let's take Venezuelans. The president redesignated temporary protected status for Venezuelans. That has not happened for Haitians. Why?
Yeah.
Why? So we need to so I'll take Haiti. I'll just start there. Okay. I co-chair the House Haiti Caucus. That's another one of the caucuses that I lead on. I actually represent the third largest Haitian diaspora in the country.
No, I knew that, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure, because you're such an Aquarian, you do your homework.
When I first became a reporter, I didn't know how to say I don't speak Haitian Creole in Haitian Creole. It was the only language I didn't get.
So I'm fortunate to represent such a large Haitian diaspora. But we have to halt deportations to Port-au-Prince. That's where most deportations are happening.
Yeah.
It's ostensibly a death sentence. I mean, given the political destabilization,
unbelievable.
Given the devastation from earthquakes, from hurricanes, given the gang violence, the trafficking of U.S. guns and arms to Haiti, this is a country that is less than 800 miles away from the United States, from Florida. So stabilizing Haiti is good immigration policy. Stabilizing Haiti is good foreign policy. Stabilizing Haiti is good economic policy. And it's the humane thing to do. So if people are frustrated by the influx of migrants seeking asylum, which is a legal right, when you are fleeing places of civil unrest and political destabilization and devastation and violence, then we have to do right by those countries. And again, people are fleeing either civil unrest, or now we even have what you call climate refugees. Yeah. People are fleeing because of extreme weather events. So, but we need a humane, compassionate response that gets people on a pathway to citizenship.
Well, that was a really good answer, though, because you were very specific. And what's so compelling about this is it's very broad. As you said, there are all these different shapes and sizes. And
well, certainly very challenging to to answer in 2 minutes. So
I
you'll have me back, and we can talk even more about it. But tremendous implications. And I do want to also just acknowledge that I am proud to live in a state called a Commonwealth home that does prioritize right to shelter. That is certainly a source of pride for me. That we have led with a humane response in the midst of this humanitarian crisis.
So, but there's still recently, correct me if I'm wrong, but now restrictions on how long people can stay in emergency shelters in the state. So, do you have a sense? Have people come to you and said that their life is much more difficult? Have your constituent services people had to reach out and do more work because of that?
Absolutely. I represent cities that have been disparately impacted by this influx of Haitian migrants seeking asylum. Chelsea, all parts of Boston, from Roxbury to East Boston. Certainly it has created additional demands on our housing system, our healthcare system, our schools. So first, I just want to thank all the community-based organizations in the absence of our Congress having acted to get us on a pathway legislatively to comprehensive immigration reform. I thank the community-based organizations like Chelsea La Collaborativa, like IFC for standing in the gap. And we have to continue to get more resources to those community-based organizations. And I did deliver and secure, a formidable amount of federal resources to support those cities disparately impacted by an influx of Haitian migrants seeking asylum. When it comes to the latest proposal to limit those shelter stays to 9 months. First, let me just say this. I am still in mourning over the death of the Build Back Better legislation because we had a $150 billion investment in that for housing. We have a housing crisis. We have a homelessness and unhoused crisis. And I'm very much a believer in the housing first model. I don't want anyone being warehoused in a shelter for 9 minutes, much less 9 months, okay? Because it's very rare that those shelters are providing holistic supports that those
they don't even necessarily have a bathroom that's nearby.
Right, and those who've come from very harrowing things. I was in Chelsea 2 days ago because I delivered some community project funding, what used to be called earmarks, of a little over $1.1 million to provide mental and behavioral health services to immigrants. And I met someone there who said, I'm here, I'm trying to get on the good path, but I'm overwhelmed by images of my wife being raped in front of me. I mean, these are just so you have to think about, and I've spent a lot of time with these children, the things they've been subjected to. So no parent would subject their child to such harrowing experiences that will stay with them forever if what you were fleeing was not 10 times worse. So that's why I'm saying we have to focus on addressing the root causes of those seeking asylum. Now, when it comes to this new policy that's been proposed, and again, I want to be sensitive to the stressors on our system and what that means for the governor, and why I continue to fight for her to get the federal resources to address this crisis, we have to focus on exit strategies, and that is permanent housing. Like, for example, if you have just arrived in this country and you've been in a shelter for 9 months and you don't even have a credit score, how can you get permanent housing? So now we've done the work of expediting work permits to try to get people out of shelter, out of being warehoused and into gainful employment more quickly. And that has made a difference, but we need employers to step up. So we need to redesignate TPS status for Haitians. We need to continue to expedite work permits. We need employers to step up, and we need a sound exit strategy so that when people are coming out of a shelter system in 9 months, they're actually being successfully resettled, successfully reintegrated.
Speaking of exits.
Or integrated.
Speaking of exits, we have to exit the show.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
Okay.
This has been Congressional Update. Have a good day.